only on items that are within our specific jurisdictional responsibility. Owner agents are independently responsible to obtain any appropriate permits and/or approvals. If you haven't already done so, please silence cell phones. And I'd like to introduce the commissioners, starting from my left.
Good morning, I'm Eric Schiller.
Good morning, Jose Jalotz.
And I'm leaving Wynn.
And we also have with us today Dennis Fernandez, Ron Vila, Beverly Jusek, and Kate Wells as legal. For those keeping score at home, she's moved on and is now legal. So welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thanks. Next on the agenda is the reading of the minutes from October 8th, 2019. We need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Seconded.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meeting minutes are passed. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Fernandez, Architecture Review and Historic Preservation Manager. Welcome to today's hearing, our second in October. We appreciate your flexibility in our scheduling. I don't have any announcements, but I did want to bring to your attention that we have the 2020 Barrio Latino Commission schedule in your packets, and I think that may have been sent to you electronically. If you have any known conflicts, please let the staff know. We're already actually scheduling into 2020 for our caseloads, so that's right around the corner. And with that, I'll ask Ron to come up and handle the continuations.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Ron Vila. I'm staff with Historic Preservation. We have one case reflected on today's agenda, which is BLC 19-123 for the address of 2601 East 12th Avenue. That application was deemed incomplete. There was a change to the request. The interior floor plan has changed and the density has increased, so they believe that they might not meet parking. They're in the communication right now with the zoning department to see exactly what's going on, so they will have to renotice. So the noticing will take place with a sign on the property, and if a variance is needed, they will have to do the mail-outs and reach out to the neighborhood groups as well. So that'll be a future case. No action is needed for that because the application is incomplete. Moving to a conflict of interest and ex parte communication. At this time, if any commissioners want to put something on the record, they may do so. Seeing and hearing none, we can move to the swear-in. Ms. Juzak will swear everybody in that wishes to testify. Anybody that wishes to testify, please stand up and raise your right hand.
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are providing this morning is the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do. So we can move to the first case this morning, which is BLCT, which indicates this is coming in for a tax review, 19-04 for the address of 2105 North Nebraska Avenue. This case was reviewed and approved for a certificate of appropriateness in February of this year. And now this morning, you're going to look at the request for an ad valorem tax exemption for Part 1. This is pre-rehabilitation. So the agent will show you the existing conditions and the goals that she wishes to accomplish to meet the Secretary of Interior standards. On page 2 of the staff report, we have some historic photos attached, so you could use that as reference. And at this time, I'm going to introduce the agent, which is Ms. Farrell. We usually start with a staff presentation with a photo essay, but since the ad valorem is so heavily situated with photos, I'm going to just turn it over to Stephanie at this time.
Thanks, Ron. Again, I'm Stephanie Farrell, and I'm happy to be here this morning. With me is Marjorie Hagler, and she'll be helping me, and we'll be going back and forth from the overhead to some of the drawing boards. So the project that we have in hand today is, so to speak, is 2105 North Nebraska, the German American Club, which is located on the western edge of the historic district, right there, and actually located within both the National Register and local historic districts. And here it is located in an aerial, and so this is the historic building, and then this is associated parking. It currently exists as a parking lot and will be improved and will continue to serve as parking for the new project. And here is the site plan of the building. Here's the historic building, the German-American Club itself, and then here is an addition, which, as Ron mentioned to you, you have reviewed previously and approved the addition. We will be going over the exterior as well as discussing the interior, but I know you all have seen that. To the north of it is an existing, actually to the north of the historic building is an existing parking lot, and then the major parking lot again is to the south of the building. So here we have a Sanborn map of the building. The map was prepared in 1915. The building was constructed in 1909 with renovations in about 1942. And then again, some renovations were done by TEDCO, Tampa Economic Development Corporation, in 97 and 98. And in fact, I had my office there when I was an in-house consultant to the city and saw the building before rehabilitation as well as after its 1998 renovation. So you'll see there is a cigar workers cottage immediately to its east, and there were historically two buildings to its north which are no longer existing. And here is the building shortly after constructed, 1920. And the building looks pretty much like it did in those days, except of course I'm sure you all have noticed it has been painted. It is masonry with an appearance to look like stone, although it is not stone. And all of that will be repaired and the building will be repainted. So here's the building. A similar view as it exists today. As you'll see, it was painted. It was painted some time ago. I remember it being painted as of the early 90s. I'm not sure exactly when that happened, and it will continue to be painted. The windows. Well, we'll look more closely at the windows in the future photograph. Here is the structure looking north. So this is the south and partial west facades. And here is the north side of the building where the new addition will be constructed. And I'll show you how that will be handled. And here is the east facade adjacent to one of the historic cigar workers' cottages, which is obviously still existing. And then just a few details. So some of the important features in the building are the original door openings and windows. This door obviously is in rough shape. It will be actually repaired, and as will any damage to the existing masonry. And then we have here next a typical window. This one happens to be on the north facade. And you'll notice that that window is not original. The window opening is original, and then the early photographs did show that there was a panel below what was probably originally a casement window. These are fixed windows, aluminum, and they will remain in place, as will the aluminum framed transom. So moving to the interior, we will start with the lower floors. And first, the floor that was called the basement, right, historically. And you will see there are virtually, aside from the original painted cast iron columns, there are no original finishes in this building. And that is in large part because the building was in very, very poor shape before its late 1990s renovations. So here the ceilings are drywall, the floors are obviously carpet, with some of that carpet and tile having been removed, and then the walls are painted drywall. Another view, this is looking east along the south wall. And again, you'll see those lovely cast iron columns, modern light fixtures. There are no original light fixtures in the building. Another view of this space, and that includes a ramp, which was constructed in the 90s as well, and it is to be removed. ADA will be accomplished in a different fashion in the renovations, and you'll see that that some of the column capitals were enclosed during that renovation, and they will all be exposed in the upcoming rehab. So this is a detail of the column capitals. Typical column capital. And this is one of the encapsulated column capitals. Again, that one will be, all of these will be exposed, including this one. Now, moving to the main floor, called the second floor in the renovations, and we are looking towards what had been a stage. That area was enclosed in the 1998 renovations. There's a proscenium arch, which you will see, and then you'll see the balcony above. The sort of low walls were desk-high partitions that were added in the 98 renovation, and those will be removed. These light fixtures were from 1998 as well, and those will be replaced with something fairly contemporary as well. The light band here, we think, was there historically, although of course the fixtures that are there are not the original ones. That element will also be restored. And then here we are looking towards the front entrance of the building, and you'll see some low partitions that are obviously from the 98 renovations, and those will be removed, as will the desk-high partitions, as I said. Another view, and this is looking southwest. And here we are just looking at a couple of some of the original doorways, original window openings with, of course, contemporary windows. The elevator lobby, the elevators and elevator lobby, which was constructed in 98. The original stair location, and with beadboard. The beadboard is not original. It was probably trying to replicate something that was missing, and that, of course, stair will remain in place. And here we are on the mezzanine level, the balcony level, and again, the stage, well, the proscenium arch in the distance, and the sides of the balconies. By the way, these balcony low walls are only 32 inches, so you'll see the solution which will be a glazed railing that will bring that up to the 42 inches that is required by code. And another view of that same area, and I will also see that this area behind the proscenium arch was used as a conference room, and it will continue to serve a similar function. And then here we are looking downward towards the front entrance, and again, these partitions were from 1998, and they are to be removed. And then this is just a close-up of some of the windows that are typical. This is windows that happen to be on the third floor. The sill was there was a sill originally here. This maybe probably is a replication, and the banding around the jamb and the head is not original, and that trim will be removed. So we will move from there to some SketchUp drawings, and then I'll quickly walk you through the elevations as well, and I'll let Margie get to that place. I think the SketchUp drawings really show how the addition is to work, and I was not part of the design, but I will tell you, I think that it is an excellent design. I think the architects did a terrific job, and that is because here again, here's the historic building on the right-hand side of the slide. There is a glass hyphen that's set back that creates distance between the mass of the lowered and smaller footprinted addition to the building. So it's, I think, an approach that makes it clear that the addition is new, but it is compatible and sensitive to the to its context. Here's a three-dimensional view of that, again showing the inset hyphen, the sort of smooth brick facade with the glazing band to the side and above in a sort of clear story manner, and then the historic building continuing to shine. So the things about the historic building that are clearly important, which will be maintained, are the existing modulation of the masonry, the original grand staircases on the east and south, the sort of balcony area, covered balcony area, the cornice and parapet, and almost all of the window openings. And we'll see in plan there are two window openings and one door opening which will connect to the historic building. So two of the original windows will become doors. And again, using the existing width and as a sensitive approach to making this addition work. So this is a closer view of the addition to the historic building, and you'll see it is very nicely modulated. And then closer view of the hyphen. So moving from there to the plans will be next, and I will let Margie, well, I guess I will walk over to those, and the pointer is good, great. And I guess do I need a microphone? So, what we have here, can you hear me or do we need the microphone? Okay, thank you. So what we have here is, on the right, again, is the outline of the historic building. This space that you noticed on the basement level was an open sort of exercise area. And these additional partitions around here existed, and they will continue to exist. There will be new partitions in the center of the space. Each of the columns will again be revealed because the partitions will be approximately 8 feet of solid drywall finish, painted drywall, and then above that will be glazing. And then I'll show you a detail of that. And again, here's the hyphen connector to the new building. And I'll let Margie do the flipping there. The banner of the day. So here is an elevation of those partitions. So you can see the gray area is solid. These are doorways into each of the exam rooms or offices. By the way, the proposed new use, you all may remember, this is going to be a sort of a clinic and health facility. So it's a combination of exam rooms and then office and consultation areas, as well as offices for the staff. And there also will be a small pharmacy within the building. So again, this is glazing here at the top of the partitioning so that you can see the restored column capitals. And here is a larger detail of that. Here's the column capital, existing soffit, and then new, and it's going to be double glazing because the rooms require privacy. And then I mentioned to you on the balcony level that this is the existing balcony wall, and there will be a new glazed polished glass rail at the top of that to create that 42-inch height that we require. So moving to the main level, what's really wonderful about this design is that they will be keeping this as a large open space. So what's some of the things that are really important about this building, although there are virtually no original finishes, columns are certainly one of them, The volume of the space is a character-defining feature, and so this use will actually maintain that. And we are pleased to be able to tell you that. This partitioning that was most of which was created in 1998 will continue to exist. Just the rooms will have new uses. This will be a youth room. This will be storage, catering, and then the existing restrooms will be renovated. And then, of course, here's the second floor addition, which will be open office and some private offices as well. So moving to the third level, also known as the mezzanine or balcony level, that will also be maintained open so that you can see the original proscenium arch. The space behind the proscenium arch will remain in use. The stage will not be reopened, but there will be no new partitions there. This will basically continue to serve as again, this will be a conference room. And this will be open seating. There may be some open office desks and so forth along here, but it will be open, not enclosed. So this will be a break room, storage, another break room here. And then, again, offices and open office area on this top floor. So that's, now in terms of finishes, I think I mentioned to you there are maybe a few times now, no original finishes. So the new finishes will be contemporary compatible finishes. I actually know that on the second level and balcony levels, what I see at this point below the carpet is particle board and plywood, because the building was in such poor shape that the wood did not survive in the 1990s. So the finishes that we see here are break room counters, are something like Corian, cabinets, plain finish. Paint colors are going to range in this from grays to sort of blue accent walls. The flooring in the testing rooms is going to be a vinyl, as are the floors in any corridors, and then the floors in the offices on the third floor are carpet, and a carpet in the new building as well. This is counter finish, which is a stone, a cast stone. There will be some accent walls in the restrooms. These will be the new modern-ish sconces. Hardware will be this oiled bronze look, which matches the existing hardware. And then these are proposed to replace the 1998 pendants that you saw before. So it's just a sort of a calm combination of sort of neutral colors that will blend with the building. So that is the finishes. And I think we'll move to a couple of wall sections just to show you a few things. Here is the roof of the historic building and the roof of the new addition with the air conditioning units pushed backward away from the front of the building. Okay. Cross section, historic building, new building with the hyphen. And what's important about this slide is that the new building is touching the historic building, but these floors are cantilevered. So they are not bearing on the building, so that if one were to ever remove the new addition, the historic building would remain intact, and that's important. And some details of that. And actually, the framing will cut around the edge of the building so that it, again, maintains, it does not cut into the building. The glazing will frame around the historic building. So again, being sensitive to the original historic fabric. And then these are some more details that show the cantilevered structure of the new building. So I think we have worked our way through all of this, hopefully within our time frame. And I we'll be happy to answer questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, I'm staff with Historic Preservation. With this complete presentation, staff finds that this is consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation for Part 1 as presented. In working with the agent, staff goes out and we try to review and identify and retain any of the historic fabric that's left behind. A lot of time in these buildings, a lot of the fabric has been removed, so we do the best we can to uncover, as she talked about the capitals, with the drop ceiling that will be exposed and some of the original elements will be expressed as part of the rehabilitation to meet the Secretary of Interior standards. So as presented, this is consistent. Just a last minute note as well. In the late 90s, this building, there was a lot of discussion to demo this building. So this is a win for preservation. Not only did we save the historic structure, but put it back into the fabric of the area and then added on to it. So it's going to be a catalyst for that corridor. I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you. We have the opportunity for public comment. Is anybody here to speak for or against this case? Okay. So we'll start with commissioners asking questions.
I have no questions, thank you.
Oh, no questions.
No questions as well.
I have questions. Okay, the slide that we're on there with the glazing, the way it comes in and around the building, I would just ask you to double check what was approved, and I don't recall, because I know that we went a couple different meetings into how that building connected. Just had an opportunity to go to Virginia and thought of this project because of the addition, the modern addition of the library to the existing library in Norfolk, and they incised the glazing into the wall. So there's a couple different takes. I'd ask you to look, just to double check with Ron, and to make sure that as we go forward that what that detail is what was approved if we specified. And I don't recall off the top of my head. In terms of the question for you on the conference room that's going to be retained at the proscenium, there's a number of different mullions shown for glazing in that. Do you? I don't recall seeing what that detail was. Is that something specific?
You're talking about the existing enclosure for the proscenium arch?
Yes, and the way that the conference room works.
Yeah,
with
that will remain in place.
Okay, so that gypboard wall there is going to remain.
Yes.
Okay, I guess more of a comment to that is that, on the, as you know and you've described in the presentation, you have this addition that has this glass wall that's the hyphen, as you call it, intersecting with the old building. I saw that proscenium as a place where that materiality could potentially move into the building to acknowledge the fact that wasn't obviously an original opening or an original wall, and use some of the new materiality to differentiate what's inside of the building versus what's there currently. I think that that's an opportunity to press reset on what you have in that picture to make it a little bit more sympathetic with what you're proposing completely.
I'll mention that to the owners.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure they'll be happy to hear it. But those are my only questions and comments. So thank you for a thorough presentation.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So what we can do is, that sounded like a good rebuttal. We can close the public hearing and discuss the case and move towards a motion. So.
No, I think the presentation was very thorough. I think you're very sympathetic to what has existed and what remains of the historic fabric, and I thank you for that, and including the uses, trying to keep the open spaces and community spaces that were open, very open as well. So that's very appreciated.
I agree.
I have no comment.
Well done.
Thank
So
you.
with that, we need a motion to move this forward.
I'll make a motion. I'll move to approve the ad valorem tax exemption application for the plans presented at this public hearing in case BLC T1904 for the property located at 2105 North Nebraska Avenue for the rehabilitation of this property is based on the facts in the record, and the proposed project is consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation guidelines for rehabilitating historic buildings.
We have a motion.
Second?
We have a second. Now's the time when we ask you if you agree with them, any of the conditions, but seeing that there are none, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, and I'd
Thank
also
you.
like to thank the staff, who was always of great assistance.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. The next case reflected on the agenda is BLC 19-146. They have multiple addresses at 1402 North 19th Street and 1806 East 3rd Avenue. There is a contributing structure on the site that will also have an addition attached to it, similar to what you've just seen. The contributing structure dates back to 1925. The zoning classification is YC6. And the request in front of you this morning is for preliminary approval for new construction of an apartment building and exterior renovations to the existing historic contributing structure and some site improvements. If you recollect that there was this request in front of you earlier this month, and there were some variances attached to it, all the variances have been removed, so no variances this morning. At this time, I'd like to go through the photo presentation. This is a Sanborn map from 1929. Property in question is here in the shaded green area. If you look on the corner of 19th Street and 3rd Avenue, you have what's indicated in blue, which indicates it's a masonry construction building. It's on the corner with a balcony that flanks that eastern elevation, and then the addition will take place on the empty parcel to the west. Immediate in the vicinity of the subject site, you have Phillips Shore School. That's to the southeast, and then directly to the south, you have the Carawa Disca Cigar Factory. Here's a shot from above. Once again, showing the corner of 19th Street and 3rd Avenue. This was the school, Phillips Shore School, and then you see the 4-story cigar factory to the south. You see the worker row houses to the north of the property. And then also on this vicinity map, they're displacing some of the parking to meet the City of Tampa zoning code, and that surface lot will be over here, and it will be discussed as part of this presentation. Moving to what we'll call the front elevation, or the front facade off of 19th Street. The existing condition is a 2-story structure with a elaborate cornice that wraps around, and I have some details of that. This is moving to the south elevation. You see the series of the solids and the voids with a belt course. And moving to the rear of the property, which will encompass the addition. This is looking at the empty parcel to the west. Just moving to the features on the building so you get a little more familiar with the condition and some of the materials. You see the masonry units in place here. You see the proportions of the windows, although these are not the original windows. The proportions were respected, and then you have the sill below. This is showing a shot of the balcony from the side and what's the fire escape now, which will be removed. And then you see some of the lower windows with the transom above. On the second floor, you see the structural columns, the existing guardrail, and behind that a door with a transom. Moving back down to the first floor. See the threshold as you work your way up to the double doors, and then the transom above The transom was very important of quality of life prior to air conditioning to let the air flow into the building while still providing security. And then you see the iron columns that flank the door system. This is looking at one of the entry features that are there now, and then what was a storefront that was enclosed. Moving to the cornice. You see there's some articulation within the cornice, and then how it wraps around and just terminates as it comes to the end or the rear of the building. This is an abutting storefront to the north of the contributing building. This is the contributing building, and working our way to the north. This is Philip Shore School. Hard to get a picture with all the vegetation. And then the Corral Wadisca building to the south. And you see the massing on the site. And just to conclude, a couple of street shots. This is looking down 19th to the north. This is one of the streets that still maintain the original materials with the brick streets and the granite curbing. And then turn it around. This is back towards Adamo, which is to the south. And once again, you'll see Philip Shore, contributing structure, and the Corral Wadisca for massing purposes. And that concludes the photo presentation.
Thanks, Ron.
Are you going to go straight into the PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Fali Garcia. I'm with Open Workshop for Architecture. We were here 2 weeks ago, and as Ron Villas stated, we were able to remove the request for variances. We worked with our engineers, and we went back to the drawing board, and we were able to find a happy medium and remove those variances. So for the purposes of this presentation, will refer to the parcels as A, B, and C. A being the parcel where the existing contributing structure is, B the parcel next to it, and C would be where the parking lot is. Is it possible to bring up the PowerPoint? There we go. So as you can see, parcel A, B, and C along East 3rd. Parcels A and B have a combined square footage of roughly 19,000 square feet with a combined FAR of 44,000, a little over 44,000 square feet as well. We are requesting to rehabilitate the existing structure. It's a two-story masonry building. It will house a total of 10 units, and the total the total project will have 36 units, so 10 of them will be in the existing building. The rest would be on the new structure. The new structure is being placed on the site such that it looks as a separate building with a very small connector at the rear, and trying to stay consistent with the design guidelines of the district and also with the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation. We have decided also not to add to the existing structure as well. So you'll see this as we go through the slides. We do have obviously space constraints, as you know we were discussing 2 weeks ago. So on site we're only able to fit 17 parking spaces. As you see, we also have a grand oak at the rear that we are proposing to save as well. And to supplement the parking spaces, we have a lot which is roughly within 500 linear feet from the site, which will house the rest of the parking spaces. I believe we will have a total of 48 parking spaces. We're currently in we've already submitted for an alternative design exception, so that's currently on the process. As Ron said, we are requesting today preliminary approval, so this is kind of a complex project, a lot of moving parts, so it's gonna This is phase one of that. The second variance that we removed was the 1 foot that we were requesting at the rear. We were able to eliminate that by working with our civil engineer. We're going to be doing some regrading at the rear, which allowed us to eliminate the steps going into the units, which gave us the extra foot that we needed. So this is the existing building, as you've seen. We're going to remove the fire escape as it's not needed and doesn't meet code and is truly a hazard. We're proposing to refurbish the balcony system. Now, this is not the original balcony. I believe the original balcony was a wood structure. This was done at some point to respect that original balcony. So we do want to refurbish and enhance this balcony. There are some challenges. We're going to go through the encroachment process. So we will be going through that process after this, depending on how the outcome of this meeting is, as well as the cornice detail will also have to be approved through the encroachment process. So we do have to go through that for this building. And there's a small component on the new building, which is the entry canopy, which will also have to be part of that application, which you'll see in later slides here. We're going to be repairing and painting and the exterior masonry. We're going to be adding and recovering the storefront system. Luckily, the building north to this building, abutting this building, we believe it was done roughly around the same time. So we have a good precedent of what the storefront used to look like here. So we're kind of mimicking that and respecting that architecture and design. There's some foreign elements in the building, like the canopies along 3rd, which we'll be also planning on removing. These are some of the character-defining elements that we've identified in the building, which we'll be keeping throughout, like the iron columns at the front and the cornice details. There's some interior columns that we're going to be seeking to keep as well. And then you'll see here on the right of the screen what that storefront system we believe looked like. This is the materiality of this building. Again, we're going to keep it pretty much what it is now, a light beige color. This is consistent with the Ybor City's approved finishes. This has been worked with we've worked through this palette with your staff. And these are some of the building elevations. And you can see the most significant changes to the elevations is on the east elevation and then the south elevation, with all new windows and then the new storefront system, storefront system. You see at the bottom on the west elevation, there's a whiteout area, which is that's where we are connecting the existing building, which you see is a very small footprint to the existing building. It is important to also note that we have been granted we were given a grant by the, let's see here, through the Hillsborough County Challenge Grant. So we've already gone through this presentation with them, and they've granted us some. They gave us a grant to help us with the rehabilitation of this structure. For the design of the new building, we went through and looked at the Ybor City and some references in the Ybor City area. Obviously, the most important reference was the building across the street, just the Corral cigar factory. We drew from this building the materiality and then also the rhythm of the windows. The Philip Shore School, looking at how the stucco apron was included, and then just the combination of that with the brick as well. And then also along 7th Avenue, we looked at the variation of materiality between 1st and 2nd floor and how that begins to help and break the building scale as well. We've also looked at some additional goals that we wanted to accomplish for the project. We want to make sure that we activate the street edge with landscaping and create an inviting facade, and then create more of an urban continuity, especially on the south side of the district. we want to maximize the opportunity for natural lighting within the structure and create opportunities for views to the district and to downtown. And we want to focus also on creating some rooftop areas also, since the new building we're proposing would be a 5-story structure. So I think there's some really great opportunities there for some rooftop spaces. This is the material palette that we're currently studying for the new structure. So it's a combination of brick, some small details with stucco, which would mainly be really expressed on the columns, and then some black for trims, and the window trims as well is going to be black. So it's going to be, the reason we picked this color palette is, again, to contrast between the 2-story existing structure and then the Corral building across the street, so which has more of a red brick color to it. This is the south facade of the building, which is really the main facade for the new structure. To the east is where the building connects to the existing structure, and then to the west you see is the entrance to the parking lot, which is hidden, and it's masked by the building itself. We thought, and I think we've touched lightly on this in the past, but we thought that it was really important to have units directly engaging with the streetscape, just to have a more vibrant street life. As you can see, as you move up, we have the brick in the kind of in the center of the building, and then at the top floor, we break the materiality again, and actually set that structure back so that the building don't seem higher than the Corral building itself. This is the rear facade, so it'll be facing north. And here we're just showing part of our design process, drawing inspiration from the Corral, again following the rhythm and scale to make sure we were respectful of that as well. You can see here in the axonometric section just the complexity of the building. You see how the lofts engage to the street, how the parking is. We're using the parking at the rear and kind of cantilevering the building over it, and then you're able to see how we're proposing to step back that 5th floor for the building. We're playing with the window fenestration again to stay consistent with the rhythm of some of the references that we showed earlier. And then here you can see what this addition starts to look like in relationship to the street in third, and in relationship to its existing context. In this rendering, you can see how the building relates to the existing 2-story structure. We are drawing from this existing structure, and you'll see as we move forward, we are trying to respect some of the original lines from the historical structure here. And then this is where the two buildings meet. As you see, there's this slight separation, and the connection is set back. We've worked with your staff, and we're able to come up with some design details that again kind of relate to the building next to it and the building across. With most of the development happening along 7th Avenue and north of Ybor City, we believe that this is really a pivotal project for the revitalization of the south side of the district. So with that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. Staff's finding that this application is consistent for preliminary approval with the Ybor City Design Guidelines and the Secretary of Interior standards. Going to page 3 on your staff report, we have the application of standards, which discuss the Ybor City Design Guidelines. And for preliminary approval, if you look under those bullet items, today he's provided you with the height and the width, the facade width, the setback, the spacing, the alignment. So all that was indicated on his site plan and then the illustrations that were provided as well. Moving to the Secretary of Interior standards, starting on page 3 as well. There is a contributing structure on site. The contributing structure shall be preserved and retained. It also discusses that the removal of historic materials or alterations of the historic features shall be avoided. The elimination of those features shall be avoided. The distinct features, finishes, and the construction techniques and examples of craftsmanship shall be preserved. Staff feels that the slight intrusion to the rear elevation of the addition to the flow from the contributing structure to the new structure accomplishes this, and then they have the void in between to respect the contributing structure. And then also it talks about new additions and exterior alterations shall not destroy the historic materials that characterize the property, and the new work shall be different from the old and shall be compatible in size and scale and massing. So staff feels that this accomplishes it. And moving to the staff's findings and conditions on page 4, there are some things that should be reviewed today for preliminary approval if this board feels that they've submitted those. And then there's some things that should be continued if preliminary approval is approved to the final approval. So I want to go through that list real quick. On page 4, the bullet items under condition, is just to meet with staff, which we've done many times, and then provide the adequate drawings so that the board could see exactly what their intentions are. To identify the method of stormwater on this large site so it doesn't adversely affect the surrounding properties. Submit a landscape plan, the location and species of those materials, and that could be delegated to final, but with commercial properties, landscaping is a requirement that should be shown. Landscaping should be held to a minimum on the site. Landscaping did not overpower the urban environment in the early 1900s, but should complement the request at hand. Solid waste is always an issue, and it comes up more times later than not, so we should address solid waste. He does have the location of solid waste on the plan, and I think he should go through it. He has been in discussion with solid waste department on the location. He should start the process for the existing and proposed encroachments. It's a lengthy process, and at this time, I believe he's already reached out to Barbara Lynch with right-of-way, but to continue that discussion. There were some transportation standards that were not met on the apron coming into the site that have been adjusted, so I think as reflected on the plans, that they're adequate. And with all the hardscape and landscaping that should be shown to define those treatments, there's scoring patterns that should be reflected on all the paving there. And if the introduction of new materials, he should have a material palette at the time of final to show all pedestrian lighting as well. On the historic building, on the second level, there's some windows there that are going to cut in some openings for doors, or that was the discussion early on. I'd like to see the path that's taking now, and if the historic structure needs to be altered in that way, and to provide additional information. And then, as I conclude here, to start the discussion with zoning for the design exception for the parking on a satellite site. I've been included in some emails, and I know that discussion has taken place, but where it's at exactly right now is very important to the success of this project, and that should be included for a final approval. And then lastly, I always include the bullet items to provide multiple wall sections to call out all the exterior materials, and that will be at the time of final, but it could open up discussion currently if you have a strong feeling on that. So at this time, I'm going to hand it to the board, and I'll be here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ron. We have the opportunity for public comment at this point. If anybody is here to speak for or against the project, now's your time. Seeing none, we'll move into commissioners asking questions.
I like what I see. And I think it's an improvement from what you had proposed last time. My question to you is, had you considered, well, let me, before I ask you the question, I'll tell you that, to me, the color palette of the gray, it doesn't really work for me. With the brick streets and so forth, and the yellow of Philip Shore and the red of Corral Waduska, the cigar factory, I think I would like to see well, I'll couch this as a question. Had you considered warming up that color palette with perhaps some shade of a red brick, more organic tones, warmer tones than the gray?
Yes, we have, and we did, and the discussion with the staff was that there was concern that by making the brick red, that it would detract from the Corral building, and that by creating a contrast, that we would be doing a better design in that sense. So, you know, we could look at exploring other alternatives besides the gray. I think that the red, again, I agree with your staff comments too, that, you know, the red might detract too much from that building across. So we don't want to, you know, we don't want to create confusion. So we want to make sure that when you visit, that you know this is a new building. But I believe that there's other colors. Maybe there's, you know, gray with a slight hue of brown that could, you know, maybe warm it up a little bit more.
I think you've got a very, very good project, and with very little tweaking of the color and very little expense, or additional expense, if any, it could go from very good to great.
Mm-hmm.
That's my comment.
A couple questions. One, if you could just, when we saw this project before, there was a variance for a reduction of parking. I realize there's no variance for parking, but there still seems to be an open issue that staff mentioned. Could you provide a little bit more clarity about how many parking, how you're meeting the parking requirement? You mentioned Lot C.
Right.
That was a lease the last time we saw it. Is it now a purchase? Is that a permanent solution?
No, so no, it's not so per your city code, as long as we have a long-term parking lease agreement, then we can come forth and use that as an alternative parking for the project, which is what we're proposing. So we'll have a total of, between the two lots, we'll have a total of 48 parking spaces, which meets the requirement of 1 per unit.
Staff, if you could just explain why the variance is no longer, seems to me like it's the same project, and yet the variance has been.
There is a provision in the City of Tampa zoning code that if you have a satellite site that's within 1,000 foot of the subject site, that you could displace the parking there. As Fadi has stated, that you have a long-term agreement there, and then that surface parking lot has to meet the Ybor City standards as well. Mm-hmm. So there's an ordinance that was passed that we administratively approve, you know, as parking challenges within the community rises, that these surface lots, and hopefully they're just temporary in nature, and then we have development on that site. But he's going to have to provide buffering that meets that ordinance as well, drive aisles, standards, wheel stops, signage if they're proposing any signage, and then how they're going to control that parking that is just for their project.
And what happens when that lot is, or the lease is up?
Well, at this time, it meets the City of Tampa's requirements. So in place, it's a 5-year agreement.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The other question I had is just I wanted clarification. Is there going to be a retail component on the front side of the building? I see you're replacing the storefronts.
Currently, there's not. Currently, the building is all residential.
Okay, so even though you're reintroducing the storefront system, they're going to be residential.
Correct. Okay. Yeah.
And then I just also have a question regarding the materials you've chosen. You want to do the second floor railings in a painted brass, or painted to look like brass. I'm just curious where the precedent for that design decision appears in other parts of the historic
So for the railings and the on the existing structure, it was more of a contrasting colors between the beige and the dark hues of green. So we thought that the brass color would contrast well with those colors, but you know there's certainly opportunities for you know explore other alternatives for that too. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Could you go a bit into more detail about how the new addition sort of connects with the old, with the existing building on site?
In terms
Do you have
of
like a plan or how, just like with the previous presentation, they went into a bit detail on how like that hyphen, as they kind of call it, sort of connects. Do you have any more detail on that?
sure.
This one here.
So we're still working through some final details, of course. You know, that's we're asking for preliminary, but thank you. Here at the rear, it'd just be a small hallway connection. Again, this is 2 stories, so the goal right now is we have we're exploring another option where the second floor of this building actually is only dedicated to the loft units, because the second floor of the existing structure is actually very high. It's almost a 2-story high space, so it wouldn't really match. So it would be hard to kind of connect these 2 buildings. We'll have to ramp within the second floor. So right now we're exploring an option of just keeping the second floor of this dedicated to these loft units in here, and then the stairs would be how you access that. So then really the new building would begin at the third floor. So this connection really would only be needed for the ground level at that point, because this building will have 2 means of egress on its own. Actually, I take that back. I'm sorry. The elevator would be here, so the elevator would be connected to the second floor only of this building here, but not to this, because again we have the loft units here at the ground level. For the final presentation, we'll have floor plans and sections specifically of these connections, and I know how important that is, especially for the
And I was just
utilization of the
kind of
building.
curious how like the materiality shifted from the existing to the new as
Oh,
well.
I see. Yeah, so this connection is mostly going to be glass, I think, too. It's a combination of glass and then some black trims, which is, I think, it was part of the our material palette. We don't want to celebrate that connection. Instead, we want to hide it, so the buildings really do seem like they're 2 separate structures.
Let's see. And then, so then, just as Ron had pointed out, could you go a bit over sort of the stormwater, landscape plan, hardscape, that kind of thing as well, while you have?
Yeah, we've worked through this. You know, stormwater is going to have to be treated underground. And then we've preliminarily started laying out some of the landscaping requirement. The species are going to be finalized again at the final presentation, but we've worked through that. We know we have to keep the grand oak, which we're keeping that, and so on the site plan we've provided a plan schedule, which we did after the staff report was submitted. So I think we've addressed most of their concerns, but there's still some things that will naturally get resolved as we move to the final part of this project.
And then solid waste as well, how is that?
Yes, so the solid waste will have to be a rollout dumpster. So then this would be where it would live, and so there will be a staff that would have to obviously roll the dumpster out whenever the scheduled dates are.
And then what encroachment discussions are, what encroachments are there on the site that you
So
may be concerned about?
we haven't submitted the application for the encroachment yet. We wanted to go through this presentation first and see what some of your comments were before we went that path. I know it's going to be a difficult path, but our goal is going to be mainly for, the main challenges are the existing structure, and then we have this canopy here at the entrance of the building, Obviously, will encroach as well. But that process really, depending on the results of today's hearing, we would start this process as soon as possible.
Fantastic. And then just as a final sort of question and comment, like I've liked overall what you've done so far, and I think from the previous presentation 2 weeks ago, you've made a lot of great compromises and that have made the project better, and also, you know, without the variances and all the other things that we've had to deal with. And I'm just kind of curious if you showed the rhythm and the sort of spacing of the building, the windows and that kind of thing, and how you taken the context into it. I was just wondering maybe about if there's anything that you used, like with the existing cornice on the historic building, or with the way that their columns are sort of laid out, which seem to be very important things of the with the historic building as well, and how maybe you've implemented that in the new building.
Yeah, I mean, so we this was a really intricate cornice detail. So you know, we looked at that, and it's you know, for the existing building, it actually complements the building very well. We were concerned, you know, in fact, we actually started with smaller trim details on this areas here, and we've actually increased them, which it helped the building. It's helped actually reduce the scale as well, in kind of a strange way. But so we've looked at that, and we didn't feel like this architecture related to the new architecture, but we're still being respectful of that and how important that is. So we've included, you know, obviously one here and one at the top, pretty much where there's a change of materiality. We've included one of those.
Great, thank you.
Sure. One more question. Not sure if you showed us the eastern elevation. Is there any fenestration on the eastern elevation in the building B? I realize probably not on the first two floors, but do you have an opportunity to introduce fenestration on the third or fourth?
Let's see here. The eastern elevation of the new building. Currently, we're not showing a fenestration there because it's so set back. We didn't think that it would impact the, you know, it would have too much of an impact. So we'd rather take that energy and put it towards really the facades that matter the most.
So there would be no windows at all?
There will be no windows on this side, on the east side, yeah, on the top floors, yeah, correct. Part of that building would be only circulation,
Mm-hmm.
and the other part would be on these units, which also would still have lights.
Does that apply also to the other side of the building too, the west side then? There's no
Correct. I think
fenestration?
for the other side, it's more of a fire code issue.
Okay.
So yes, that, you know, and all of these lots I think are YC6. So, and I don't think that building on the west is a historical structure. So if there was ever a development there, you end up with a window next to a pretty tall building too. So that, you know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. Okay, we talked, I want to run down through some of the stuff that Ron had asked about. We talked a little bit about stormwater. It was going to be underground. Landscaping, I understand that's going to be, you'll keep working on that. That's kind of in the background. Maintaining the Grand Oak. Solid waste, you have a dumpster enclosure on the northern side of the property, which I'm sure the materiality will be all in concert with what you ever end up with as the materials. Fencing, have you talked about that?
Yes,
Last time it was wood last time?
No, I don't think we discussed fencing last time actually. You know, the fencing I think would be more important for the parking lot.
Okay.
And of course that would be consistent with the district's guideline. There was a discussion about doing a gate at the entrance of the building. That hasn't really been fully explored yet, and just the feasibility of doing that. But there's still an option of doing that, you know, creating kind of a gated entrance to the building. The detailing, of course, will match kind of the guardrail details as well.
Okay, so the next time we see it, we'll have a little bit, you will have had the opportunity to determine if you want to do that and present it. Mechanical units, are those rooftop mounted, you figure?
Yes, so we have a lot of opportunity for locations for rooftop, especially on the existing building. It has a really deep parapet. So we currently, right now, we think that that's a great location because it would be not visible pretty much from anywhere, not even from the building across, unless you're on the roof.
To serve the whole project or just that?
No, it would be for the whole project, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say next time we see it, let's see a roof plan of that.
Yeah.
To make sure that we're all on the same page regarding what we're gonna get there. Material palette, you've heard some questions and comments about colors and, you know, in the existing renovation as well as the new project. I would recommend as well, you know, keep looking at those and see what the options are. I understand the desire to compare and contrast the old and the new, but you're making reference to larger scale buildings that are adjacent to it. So I think it's important to take those into consideration. I'm sure you are. But that kind of brings me to one of my comments is that, so for the new building, it's 5 or 6 stories, 5 stories.
5 stories,
Obviously large, obviously looking at the other references for larger buildings in the neighborhood that are adjacent to it. I have no idea how all of your 4 facades go together, right? With the cigar factory or with the school, you can see the whole thing, you can appreciate it, you can see the lines wrapping around, you can see the cornices tying it all together. Even on the historic structure that you have a large cornice that wraps around the corner. So I have no idea what the west facade does. You've heard a question about what does the east facade do, and I think that even the south facade and the north facade are 2 kind of different things. I understand that they have a similar grid relationship and they have different kind of responsibilities, but I think that, do you have an image of the west facade in the presentation?
We have an image of the west facade of the existing building, but we didn't. It's not showing currently the portion of the new building.
Of the new building.
Of the new building in the back. Right?
Yeah, I think that if you put up just you have a rendering along that south side, right? That you had.
I think this one is probably the one that shows it the most.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
okay, we'll talk about this one. Okay, so showing it the most. Your columns that you have in front of your residential units on the new building, they're kind of staggered, you know, where you get that little hiccup where the buildings are going to touch, which is fine. And then you get to the west facade and you go 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, then 3 for the bay spacing there at the end, and there's no west wall that we can discern. I have no idea. I mean, it's a great perspective that you're showing here. It's really interesting and exciting, but what is it going to look like from the other side? It's a big blank wall that we have no idea what it is. And even on this facade here, where you see the brick, you see the brick as a texture. It's really kind of applied to the face. It's the depth of, you know, kind of the sunshade that you want, and there's no tie back in and along. So I would challenge you between this visit and next time we see you, figure out how do these bands wrap around, even if they're implied. But I mean, that top band there, you have the opportunity to kind of inset at least a reveal and bring this around and across the same way that all these other buildings that you're referencing do. And I think that would, even if you're not going to put windows there, will help you tie all of the facades together. And I think that you might find that there's some places where there's some stuff doesn't quite work. And another note with that, the projection that you're going for on the new entry, the little cantilevered entry, I think that, yes, that one right there. I think that's the perfect place just to pick that up just a little bit and align it with the datum of the existing building. The little, I mean, they're so subtle and you can just hit that one little note there and it tie the whole thing together. So I would challenge you to take the inspiration of the existing building as well as what the larger buildings are telling you about how these things sit in space, and the next time we see it, bring all of the different elevations so that we can make a better decision. Because I can't tell what the west facade is. Should it have columns? Should it be projected? It looks like in plan it's a blank wall, and so that's going to be a challenge, I think, moving forward. bring in your DE1, your design exception 1 next time, so we can make sure, because if we don't have that, I don't know that the project can move forward, even if it is a 5-year term. So we talked about that. We talked about color, you know, along the front there, you've got all these residential units. We've heard about it along the storefront there, of the renovation, how that's just going to be a residence and not a storefront. That's fine, but you've got this real rigorous palette or rigorous addition, and you've got all these unique units. So I mean, maybe there's an opportunity there to introduce different colored doors for the different units along there. So it's not just all monolithic or monotone. You know, express the individuality that you're trying to support there. We've got 48 different, 36 units, right?
Right.
And it looks more like at this point kind of an office building downtown that you would find in the 60s. And what will make it unique is when people start to occupy it and hang stuff out the windows and do different stuff. I would, maybe take a hold of that a little bit and start to, incorporate that into your solution there. So those are my comments.
Could you go over the window that you might be removing in the historic building for putting the door in for the balconies?
Yes, let me go back. Actually, can we bring up the PDF slide again? Okay, so I don't know if I don't know if I can. Well, I guess I can't point there, but at the top there on the west facade. So we're gonna keep. There's 4 windows which we're gonna keep, and then there's currently 1 door, I believe, that we may have to relocate just based on how the units lay out. We wanna make sure that at least one of the units has access to the balcony, and then there's also a public access to the balcony space as well. So, the second access at the top is going to be following the same rhythm of those windows. The final location it's yet to be determined, but it'll kind of follow that same pattern of the windows at the top.
Okay, thank you.
While we're on that elevation, one quick question, because there's residential space behind the storefronts. How do you propose treating the glass? Because the guidelines are very clear that the glass has to be clear in a storefront situation.
Yeah, so it'll be the clearest glass we can get, impact rated, that meets the energy efficiency code, and in terms of how the unit is going to be able to navigate the privacy of that, is going to probably have to do with either curtains or shades specifically for that door.
But no you realize there can't be any frosted glass or any kind of.
Yes, we understand that. Yes.
Because it's a rather exposed area right there on the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think you've had the opportunity to play along with the questions. I don't know if there's any rebuttal that you'd like before we close the public hearing.
No, I'd just like to say that all of your comments are obviously very important, and this is a big project. It's a complex project, and we've actually in our office have talked about different options, and we haven't had the opportunity to explore all of them. Again, this is a large project, and as we keep designing and as we keep working with you and your staff, we keep seeing new things and areas that need obviously more attention. The intent for the next phase would be to engage a full team of consultants that will help us get the project to a more finished, detailed schematic design version, so that we can present you more details.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, well, we'll close the public hearing and
Before you
discuss.
close, just one comment, Mr. Chairman, you had asked about the design exception application. That is an application that's approved administratively by staff. What I will do between now and the next meeting is consult with staff and confirm the extent to which that application interplays with this application and what this commission's authority would be with respect to that. So
Sure.
I will research that further.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that we would just want to make sure that it can be, if it needs to be attached to the project and having been successfully completed, that it is in place before we grant final approval.
Understood.
Thank you. Okay, discussion.
It's a project that certainly meets from what we can see preliminarily, meets the guidelines, and it's one that it's a considerable investment, and it rehabs a historic structure. But I am feeling a little bit uncomfortable, even for a preliminary approval, to be not having been presented what we normally would require for a preliminary approval, which is the basics of like all 4 elevations on the new structure. So that's my only concern.
I can take that into consideration as well, but I think from what we were presented, it's been fairly well done. I could use more details as we discussed. It's only a preliminary presentation, but I think the applicant kind of understands the necessities that they have to meet, as well as the requirements, and they understand sort of our concerns as well. If they were to be granted a preliminary approval to move forward with the project.
Okay. I share the concerns, but I also share the enthusiasm for the project. There's an energy that you've put into it that's noticeable, but in terms of massing and scale and those types of appropriateness, I think that we are in a position where we can consider a motion that moves it forward. I would like to make sure that the motion contains kind of the full requirements for what we expect to see, all of the elevations of the entire project, an understanding of how it works as a totality of the 4 facades rather than just snapshots of each of them. But I think that given the kind of the massing and the diagrammatic setup of each of the facades, that it's likely that it's mostly there. It just needs to be presented into the record and for the review of the commissioners. And also, let's look at some other materials. But I think that with that, we can get a motion.
So I would move to grant preliminary approval for the drawings and documents as presented at this public hearing in BLC 19-146 for the property located at 1402 North 19th Street and 1806 East 3rd Avenue, with the following conditions: that the applicant further their drawings so that they can present all 4 elevations as well as wall sections, that the applicant consider different materiality, or as well as further the materiality selections on the project. And was there any other things that we might include? That the applicant have drawings of the roof plans for the project as well presented at their next hearing. Was there anything else you wanted to include? And then that the applicant furthers the landscape plan with stormwater and civil and all that stuff incorporated as well. To the let's see, what's the next public hearing? Do I just say the next one? Is that what the applicant would want, or is it later? Oh, just no continuance?
This is just the request for
Preliminary approval.
so
Okay,
your motion
just in
is
case you,
limited to that.
limited to that, all right.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. We have a motion that has a second with conditions attached to it. Is the applicant aware of and understanding the conditions that are associated with this preliminary approval?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have a motion, a second, and an understanding. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Commissioner, so with the preliminary approval, we'll schedule that for final approval on November 19th and then work with the applicant. If the processes aren't in place with a design exception or with the development of the project, then they can request a continuance at that time.
Thank you.
Commissioners, the last case reflected on this morning's agenda is BLC 19-97 for the address of 2309 East 3rd Avenue. Currently, it's a vacant site with the zoning classification as YC6. This is in for final. On October 8th of 2019, this project received preliminary approval. On page 3 of your staff report, there was 4 concerns at that time that were reflected on that motion, and the applicant is going to focus on that. He's going to give you a brief overview and then dive into the outstanding conditions. Just walking you through the site one more time.
Wow. We have a different image.
This is showing the fabric in 1929. This is on 3rd Avenue. Seems to be a popular street this morning. And in between 23rd and 24th Street, highlighted in the green, is the parcel. You see the fabric, as I talked about. You know, we just saw on 3rd Avenue the cigar factory that was there in the proximity to this location. So the housing stock in yellow indicates that these are all frame construction casitas that were a big proponent of the cigar industry, and a lot of the workers would live in the immediate vicinity and just walk back and forth to work. This is showing the lay of the land currently. Indicated in the green box is the subject site. We had new construction within the last probably 7 years to the east, and then there was a project that was approved to the west, but currently not under construction at this time. This is just looking from 3rd Avenue to the south back into the property. Just to the east, you have what was approved by this body, and this is a single family. And then on the other side to the east, we have some more vacant parcel. Directly across the street, we have a Butler building. And just to conclude with a couple of street shots. This is looking to the east down 3rd Avenue. And looking to the west back towards 22nd Street. At this time, I'll have the agent address the board with those outstanding items from the preliminary approval.
Thank you, Ron.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you again. My name's Kevin McGinnis. I am the owner and the presenter today of this project on 2309 East 3rd Avenue. I have hopefully addressed many of the issues that you brought up, so I'll just kind of dive into that if that's okay. On the front elevation, we talked about the notch by the garage. So that has been moved over. So all of these lines line up here from the second and the upper floors there. This is what it previously looked like, just so you can see the difference there. All the red lines are the ones that we've made the adjustments on. Okay. The next issue.
We're making a note to the AV department.
Okay.
We're missing screens up here, so
Okay.
makes it more difficult. Yeah, there we go.
Okay. Can I go to the next slide?
Yeah, please.
Okay. The next issue was kind of the continuation of the brick along the sides. So as you can see on this elevation, the brick ended right here. And then the adjustment that we made was the continuation, obviously, of the brick until the stucco started there. I'll show the other elevation for concerning the brick as well. So the west elevation here, the brick ended right here, and then we continued it to where the building started there as well, as you can see right here. The third issue was the staircase, which we added a roof onto. This is what we had previously. As you can see, the red lines there. I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is what it will look like. The picture up there, I can put it up there if you need me to. And then this is now where the roof is here at an angle. I also have that in some of the other elevations if you'd like to see those. Okay, you can see the roof here as well on the east elevation. Let's see, all the compressors are on the roof now. All of them are on the rear of the building, away from the street. I'll pull up here. This is where they were previously, and now they're all on the roof. I don't have an aerial view of the roof, but they're all on the rear of the roof there. So there's no more on the bottom floor. And I believe that was all the issues that we had. So if you have any questions about any of those, I'd love to answer them.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Ron Vila, staff with Historic Preservation. This application is complete now. He addressed all the concerns from preliminary approval, and he's in for final. Thank you.
Thank you. This is the point of the show where I ask for public comment, but seeing nobody behind you, I'm going to assume that there isn't. So we'll move to questions.
No, I have no questions, thank you.
No questions.
No questions as well.
Okay.
Actually, I don't have. I do have one question. On the new roof that you're putting on the stair, are you going to have a gutter and a downspout and stuff like that? Or?
Yes, there. I don't know if you can see it on there, but there is going to be one. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I'll just whenever we capture this in a motion, I'll just ask you to coordinate all the final detailing with staff to ensure that things like that are something that the district supports. So, I'll wait till you.
Yeah, I don't think it. I don't believe it shows it on here. It just has the name of the building.
Okay, so the drawings don't show it, but you're acknowledging the fact that you're going to have it and that we can work with staff on that.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. We need a motion.
Final approval. Move to grant a certificate of appropriateness for the drawings and documents presented at this public hearing in BLC case number 1997 for the property located at 2309 East 3rd Avenue because, based on the finding of fact, the proposed project is consistent with the Ybor City guidelines of the City of Tampa for the following reasons, because this meets the Secretary's conditions. Secretary of Interior's conditions.
We have a motion.
I'll second it, but I do think we wanted to add a few conditions that are pretty basic. One being that staff approve final signage, final lighting, final material palette, and present details regarding the gutter and the downspouts for the stairwell canopy.
Okay. Do you accept the amendment to the motion?
Of course, yes.
Okay. We have a motion with a second with amendments. Are you understanding and in agreement with the amendments?
So I would just deal with Ron on those? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Okay.
Hey, I gotta ask.
Just get you out of here.
No, it's all right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're out of here.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to say, I've been back here a few times. I really do appreciate the comments and suggestions. Every time it's gotten that much better. So, this being my first project, to this magnitude, it's really helped. So, thank you.
Well, we appreciate it, and we appreciate you coming back, and I think that we share the sentiment that each time we see it, it got better. So, thank you.
Thank you.
We're done.
Now you're working your construction drawings.